Garrett Gunderson here with Demi McConkey. So the topic on Win Then Play Money Matters really comes down to soul purpose, S-O-U-L. Some people say S-O-L-E, which would be like one linear thing, which is great, but what I'm looking at is deep down within you, what do you have? What are you capable of? Who are you at the core? When we peel back the layers of everything from mistakes that happen when we're young, to people telling us something that we start to believe, to frustrations or events where we're like, I never want to feel that way again, and we start building this shield. We start forgetting who we are and what we're truly capable of.
Let's put more money in your pocket, increase your financial IQ, and create more peace of mind, clarity, and certainty in your life. Welcome to Money Matters, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we tackle the money topics that matter.
So part of this is really going to be about what soul purpose is and what soul purpose is not. I just think there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of stuff that's really surfacey, which just has us think about, oh, I'm just a positive person. Everything's going to work out. I think about the book Give and Take by Adam Grant, where he talks about there's givers and takers are kind of in the middle. There's givers at the top and there's givers at the bottom, and there's true distinctions between the two. And there's a lot of people that give, and they actually create entitlement, and they actually create, abusiveness in the relationship where someone's taking advantage of them, and they don't get further ahead because they're not, they're not really getting that velocity of like exchange where someone else is taking that and saying, what can I support you with? And that they give back. And so part of that's spending time with people that can actually support and help you, not just the people that you support and help. So Demi, I want to go a little bit more into like, how did you get so into this soul purpose work? And like, I know you go to so many things. You're constantly like deep diving and you're flying somewhere and you're attending things and you're constantly doing this reflection yourself.
Yeah.
Like, talk about that.
I think that, that book, Adam Grant, Give and Take, that's a really brilliant distinction around what soul purpose can do for you because, he categorizes the world into three types of people: givers, takers, and negotiators. And it's quite surprising that givers are the least successful people and the most successful people,
right,
as they relate. And the distinction really is around soul purpose, right? The ones that are at the top are giving through their soul purpose. Really, the takers and the bottom givers and the negotiators, they're operating a lot of that shield, and that shield is what you were talking about. It's, because when you're born into the world, you're your truest essence, and that is what
right,
your soul purpose is, who you really are, and what you want to do with who you are, the impact that you want to make. At the core of every single person, I believe, is a desire to make a difference
right,
and impact the world in a better way. Like that's just, even inmates and everybody, the worst people in the world, they're just more disconnected from it. But at the core, that's what everybody craves, right? That's that soul
right,
purpose. And how you make that impact is in relation to who you really are. And that's not so easy to see. By the time you're 10 years old, you've got your shield figured out. And your shield is all the things that you do to protect yourself from never experiencing that again.
Right, and so I'll just talk about like one of mine. I had a huge discovery of how that like the event happened. I didn't really think about it till recently. But when I was 3 years old, I was with my mom, and we're on a walk, and I'm in my little Hot Wheels, and she's got a rope tied to it, and then she runs into her friend Mary, and they start having a conversation. And so I decide I'm going to cross the street. When I go to cross the street, I get hit by a car, right? So I get hit, it cracks open my head. I'm crying so hard that I actually go to the person that hit me with the car, thinking it's my mom because I can't see. And I can still remember this a bit. There was a city, like a little like city meeting in the city center, and one of the meeting had to do with cops. A cop saw it, so he ran and grabbed us. And I remember it was a half-hour way to the hospital where we were going, and I'm just sitting in my mom's lap, and I'm bawling. And so the whole thing was because I didn't listen to her, I caused her all this pain and caused myself all this pain. And so after that, it became about I have to do everything right. So I had this game of perfectionism because if I don't do everything right, I'm going to cause other people pain that I love and cause myself pain. And see, perfection's an unwinnable game. It's an unwinnable game. And there's no way to win first then play. If you're in perfectionism, you're constantly either playing to win or playing not to lose. I'm playing not to lose because I don't want to hurt others or get hit by something and blindsided, which life can do to us, right? And so I went through my life with background stress of like any phone call, like I hope that's not going to hurt my mom because I did something wrong at school, or that I made a mistake or whatever. So I'm just like going through life trying to get straight A's, like protecting myself, not fully expressed, constantly stressed. And then eventually in 2008, what happened was I made all these real estate decisions, and when my partners in those real estate either went bankrupt or walked away, I was left holding these properties, and then it started to actually impact my family, right? So now I'm causing pain to my wife, and so now I'm right back in that cycle, which it's really like a 3-year-old running my life, because it was going back to that moment.
It triggers
and
everything.
So now I'm like, oh, I'm not, and so I'm just beating myself up. I'm not loving myself. I'm so disappointed in myself. I'm concerned about the pain that I'm causing. I'm causing pain for myself to almost punish myself, right? Because of an incident that happens when I'm a kid. So it's really hard to find soul purpose in those moments, because you almost don't believe, like, that's stupid, that's crazy, like, that's personal development garbage, right? Like, the real world is scarcity and rough, and you know, I don't want to hurt others, and I don't want to expose myself. And so, like, having that understanding of, like, whoa, like, and the crazy thing is when we're kids, like when we're 9 months, we're like falling down when we're walking, and we're not going, oh, we just worried our parents, or, ooh, I just caused myself pain. It's like, no, that's just part of how we go through life. As we stumble around, we learn, and we improve our balance over time, and no one's like, will he ever walk because I fell 3 times in a row? But then we start to adopt those beliefs over time.
Exactly. And you probably weren't aware of that perfectionism thing that was
No, it was paradoxical. It was hidden from me.
Yes.
But it was
It's in a blind
causing
spot.
pain.
Exactly. I had the same thing. I had a big one for me was in junior high. Before I entered junior high, I didn't know the difference between fat or thin, pretty, ugly, cool or uncool. I was just a happy-go-lucky kid. I was bright. I was just playful and vivacious. And then one day, just when I felt like I was starting to make some friends, we had just moved into town, and I was kind of an outsider. Just when I started to fit in, these 3 girls, popular girls, started to like make these bovine moo calls in my direction. And I was humiliated. I was so ashamed and embarrassed. I went home and just went straight to my bedroom and cried. I couldn't even tell my mom because I didn't want her to know. I didn't want anybody to know. And you know, that happened day after day after day. And so I learned really quick that if you stand out, you get publicly humiliated. So I started cutting my meals in half again, and got thin, and the moo call stopped. So it reinforced that belief of, oh, I have to fit in to be safe. So I just realized recently, this was in my blind spot until recently, that I was operating on this like fitting in. And I kind of talk about it like I was hanging out in the in-between. Like I'd be a certain amount of successful, but I wouldn't get so successful to stand out. Make a certain amount of money, but still have some debt, just so that I'm not really standing out, you know? Yeah, and that was, again, in my blind spot, but it was so much of that, that's the shield that I protected myself from of, oh, I never want to experience that again. And so as I would go through life, my soul purpose is guiding me, because it's also always there. It's nudging you towards, you know, growth and your personal evolution and discovering more of your greatness.
Words and moments are like blinders to not see your soul purpose.
Yes.
That you know, that call, that, you know, getting in a car accident, you know.
Well, it's real, right? And we have this thing. It's our reptilian brain. It's the amygdala. It's our primitive brain, and its primary purpose is to keep us alive.
Right.
It only knows that we're safe if we're comfortable. And so anytime you are uncomfortable, and it's not comfortable, by the way, to have girls, to make moo calls at you down, you know, in junior high. That's not comfortable at all. So it fires up, and it makes a belief. And the belief is, oh, I've got to fit in to be safe. But this is happening subconsciously. We're not aware of it. And that starts to become part of the shield.
Because the pain starts to take over.
Yes, and
and then we protect ourselves from the pain. We just hide it somewhere. And it just kind of runs in the background.
Yeah. You know? And it'll shield your soul purpose. It shields that brilliance, your beautiful essence.
And part of the reason we might say, "Oh, I'm living my soul purpose," is part of that blind spot. Like I wouldn't want someone to know that I'm not fully at my level, or I don't like. I don't fully love myself, or
Yes.
or that I'm not perfect.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
How painful is it to admit
Totally.
that?
Totally. It's not comfortable to see, so we keep it back there, right? And we create these patterns, and actually, like, it can actually.
And society
even,
does a good job of perpetuating perfectionism.
Right. And
through what we see on a magazine.
And actually, some of that shield actually helps us get to a certain amount of success, right? Like, that perfectionism pushed you a certain amount.
It gave me like motivation to be, like, get the best grades, and
And fitting in, helped me. I started looking good. I got into fitness and all of that kind of stuff. It helped me get things. But it has a limitation.
Well, there's not self-expression, there's not self-acceptance, there's not love for oneself in that. It's more like, hey, now am I good enough?
Yeah.
And like, this is like entrepreneurism 101, is like filling this hole that's a never-ending hole. Like, hey, if I made this much money, now do you like me? If I'm this recognition, now do you like me? And this is not a win then play concept. It's completely like, we haven't defined our win. Anytime your win has to do with an external environment or external acceptance, it's impossible to win that game, because we don't know what's going on with their life and what they're projecting and what they're dealing with. And what I thought was interesting is, like, as I see my 14-year-old starting to, like, be really worried about what people think, I'm like, you got to realize most people aren't thinking about others, they're just thinking about themselves and their own insecurities. Like, it's an impossible win.
And I think and that's one of the, sole purpose. That's why we use it to help people reach economic independence, because if you really want to make a significant impact, you have to stand out. You can't be the message and the person for everyone. You have to be, it's like our friend Evan Carmichael says, like, I love his, like, weird duckness. Like, he's his own weird duck that he talks about. And that's what your sole purpose is you got to be your own weird duck. You got to be your uniqueness. You got to stand out. And, you're going to have people that love you and people that don't love you.
Right.
But
and that's why I just categorize 3 categories with people. I'm like, my friends are people that I just fully embrace my weirdness. I don't worry about, what I say, how I look. Like, my wife says, you have no filters anymore. I'm like, around friends I don't. They just get what they get. Yeah. Right? Then the second is my buddies. Like, my buddies don't really understand me anymore or my vision, but they accept me. Yeah. Right? And I can hang out with them. I might not share my entire vision because it doesn't relate. Mm-hmm. And then there's just people I'm friendly with. They don't like it. It makes them feel uncomfortable. They lash out in a negative way. Yeah. They're critics, not people giving feedback, right? Yeah. And I'm like, cool, I just don't have to spend time with them. Yeah. And like, just that category has really helped me out, right? Yeah. Just being like, cool, I don't have to have confrontation. Yeah. I don't have to change their mind. Yeah. I'm just gonna be who I am. Yeah. Right? And look, that's been difficult in some ways, because I grew up, I'm in Utah. If you Google me, the second thing people want to know is, like, MILDS, right? Which I do think is funny. I do look like Jesus, so that might be confusing, right? Yeah, yeah. But more like Utah Jesus, not Middle Eastern. And then, the second thing is I grew up Catholic. And I no longer relate to being Catholic, which, when I say that, some people want to save me, right, that are Catholic. And I just appreciate that it's coming from love and their belief. And then so I was like, well, when do I just tell people what my spiritual beliefs are or not? And I was like, you know what? Like, I can embrace that Father Mike in college was the best priest ever because he just wanted you to know that you're loved. Yeah. And it's not an endorsement or against, it's not for or against any religious, belief. It's just like, I love that, and I'm glad that he was in my life, even though I choose not to go to Catholic church anymore. Right. Right? Yeah. And I just think it's funny, like, what if we just focus more on soul purpose than, like, is this person exactly in my belief system? Yeah. Like, you don't have to believe everything I believe. Mm-hmm, you don't have to, like, I went to Burning Man last year. I feel like it's strange that you haven't been, actually. I have been. Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Now the world and you. Now everything makes sense. Other people think that's really weird, and that's cool. They can totally believe that. Yes. It doesn't, like, mean I have more or less of a soul purpose. Mm-hmm. It's just like I have it. Yeah. And, you either resonate or you don't, and that's fine.
I think about, too, in your early days when you started sharing this message, killing sacred cows. I mean, that is complete weird. I mean, you had to go against the grain and, say things that you knew weren't going to be popular. And that's shining in your soul purpose in a world that that wants it to look like this.
And it feels better to do that than be a chameleon. Like when I first grew up, like started in business in Utah, my business partners were Mormon, they didn't drink, so I didn't drink.
Yeah.
Right? Or they didn't swear, so I didn't swear. Like I was like always like, but then I'm around my friends, I was like this chameleon that I never truly could be who I was because I was too busy trying to appease everyone. And the reality is, I don't think people want to be appeased. They just want who you are.
Yeah.
And then if they don't like it, they can opt out and they can move to the friendly category.
Yeah. And
right?
how exhausting is that?
It's exhausting.
Trying to be.
You got to remember the whole thing.
That. Oh my gosh.
I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, the whole like staying in the in between of trying to fit in and I realized when sometimes I'd dim my light and pretend to not show my wisdom when I'm going into new communities. I don't want them to think and it's exhausting. That's what I finally came to. Is it's just so exhausting trying to fit in, and you're right, it doesn't, and that's what soul purpose is really. You asked why am I constantly investing in myself and in doing my personal work. It's because I have realized how exhausting it is, and the more that I start to get in touch with who I am behind all of that armor I put on.
I'm like, let's just identify the pain and release it.
Yeah,
let's identify the pain and forgive it. Let's identify the pain, acknowledge it, and make sure that we're learning the right lesson.
Yeah.
Sometimes we learn the wrong lesson from that.
Yes.
And we withdraw.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there is some lessons that are like, oh, this wasn't the best idea, but that mistake becomes an ingredient to be more intelligent, right?
We always, a mistake will make a meaning out of it. And you can make a meaning through the lens of soul purpose, or you can make the meaning through the lens of your reptilian survival mechanism, and
that's what I want to end with.
Down.
Like, let's talk about that, the amygdala, and talk about that reptilian brain, and why you call it monkey mind.
Yeah, so I like the term monkey mind because it's a little more endearing. It's not, and the more that I've gone deeper into this work, I don't see it as a bad thing.
Yeah, I call it fluffy.
Fluffy, I love that.
Thanks
like
for
Fluffy
sharing.
The dog,
Thanks for sharing.
Fluffy.
Like the barking's there. Thanks for sharing.
Yes, yes. And I think this.
I got this. I might say.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I thought like
as an insane person talking to myself inside my head.
Inner critic is so bad, and it's when we make it wrong. We give it more power, and when we make ourselves wrong judge ourselves for judging and all that, it just gives it more fuel. And when you see it as like fluffy,
it's just like an observation,
that's present. Yeah, okay.
Cool.
Yeah, and
and then I go, oh wait, my 3-year-old's trying to take over, and not get hit by the car.
Yes.
Worried that everything was going good in the car, and then I'm now worried about the future.
Yes. Yeah.
And then okay, why don't I just enjoy the present for a minute? That's not always easy, but it's something that I can at least recognize.
Yeah, and you got to have something, whatever you call it. You have to be able to start to create some distinctions for discernment, because when you don't, it's going to run the show.
Right, and if anyone's sitting here thinking like, what do you mean voice in the head? Just like if we pause for a minute, it's the voice that just said, why are they pausing? Or what voice? Yeah, that's the voice. That's fluffy a lot of times.
None of this stuff is making sense to me. I shouldn't listen to this. Or, something's wrong with me.
Right,
it's all that.
And like anytime I get defensive, I'm like, ooh, this is something to listen to.
Yes.
I'm defensive because it's striking a chord somewhere. It's and then if I'm not defensive at all, I'm like, oh, that just
totally
doesn't apply.
So I had a shaman once tell me, this is a great litmus test that I've used in my life.
Of course, you had a shaman type. Of course.
I know. She told me if anything in life, anytime you're triggered over a 2 on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the most, anytime you're triggered over a 2, it's your shit. It's your monkey mind. It's your jibber jabber. It's, and it doesn't excuse the behavior of what somebody's doing, but if you're worked up about it, that's your survival instinct. Rearing, it's going to make it. Here's how you know that it's your monkey mind. It wants to make yourself right and others wrong. It wants to get what it deserves. I deserve this, and it wants to be right and be validated, and it wants to be like the winner, right? And so if you're coming from that place,
which is hard to win than play, because now it's all about play to win or play not to lose. Where win than play is like, I embrace the journey, I accept the lessons.
Yeah, it's a different kind of win.
I love myself. What can I be grateful for? I'm not always going to think positively 100% of the time, and that's fine. I can vent for a moment and then enjoy the rest of the day. Yes. Like, we can be real.
Yes, that's a different kind of win. Monkey mind's kind of win is it can only win if somebody else is wrong. Somebody has to be wrong for you to win.
Win, lose.
Yes, there's a win-lose.
All right, well, look, This is I love these conversations. I'm so glad that we do these segments together. You know, and I just invite you to look into your own life and say, do you have beliefs that aren't serving you anymore? And what are you really capable of? Who are you at your core? This is your legacy when you live it, is embracing your soul purpose. So build the life you love and win, then play.